Leash safety techniques for fearful feral dogs, also known as how to not lose a dog. Please take a moment to like and subscribe to support this great content. I wanted to make a video about how I use the leash when I work with very fearful or feral dogs. And I hope this will help other people learn some techniques that can help them to handle a fearful or feral dog safer. So the first thing I would say is never underestimate the speed, agility, or fear that a dog can have very quickly with some unknown stimulus or uncontrollable stimulus. A lot of times dogs get loose when something spooks them, people aren't prepared for it, and the dog will bolt and then the leash slips out of their hands. Holding the leash, and this was a hot topic a little bit ago because someone posted a meme of how to hold a leash and everyone disagreed with this. However, this is how I hold a leash when I'm working with a very fearful or feral dog or a dog I don't know. I work with feral dogs at the shelter a lot. I take them out into an unfenced area when they're ready. And so my biggest concern is having that leash secure. So I put my hand through here, through the loop, put my hand through here, and I hold here. And that way, if the dog bolts, it's really going to be difficult for the leash to slip off accidentally. Now, people have said, but if you do that, you'll get pulled over. Well, that may happen, but it's important to be aware when you're handling fearful dogs of what's going on and try and limit that. And some of the ways I limit that is I hold my hands close to my body, because then if the dog pulls, I have my center of gravity here to help me from getting pulled over. And I also hold the leash with this hand, put it through my palm, around my thumb, and close. And so this creates a very secure second layer of protection. Now, I don't need to grip the leash particularly tight, but I do hold it. I don't just walk around like, la la la. And to be honest, for me, I'd rather get pulled over and hold on to the leash than the dog gets loose. That's my personal preference. So if you're old, have osteoporosis, or, off balance, have poor balance or whatever, maybe not work with fearful or feral dogs at all, because they are going to pull you and they are going to get spooked and you might get hurt. So this is how you hold the leash. I hold the leash like this before I get the dog out of the crate, when I take them out in the yard, even though my yard is fenced, when I take them for a walk, when I get them out of my car. I hold the leash like this for a very long time until I know that dog has relaxed enough and made enough progress that I can maybe relax and hold the leash like this instead. Collars I choose are also very important. Martingale with a chain and a buckle. To me, very important to use the buckle, because this way I don't have to slip the martingale over the dog's head and try to make it small enough while it's on the dog that the dog cannot escape. If your martingale collar, if you pull it tight around the dog's neck and these two rings, D-rings touch, it is too big. It needs to be, I like about 2 inches there. So if I pull it tight, there's at least 2 inches. And this needs to fit high and snug up on the dog, right behind the ears like this, because some dogs, when they're afraid, they can manage to kind of wiggle their head. And if the collar's not tight, they can get out. I always have a leash on them for at least a couple days, and if they're extremely fearful, more like a week or 2. So if I have the martingale collar on in the crate, which I leave the leash on in the crate, so that way I can grab the leash, and I'll show you this in a minute, before I open the crate door. And that's another reason why the martingale has to fit properly. And I leave the dogs in plastic crates so that the collar cannot get stuck on anything. Yes, there is a risk that the dog can get the collar stuck on anything, but to me, the risk is greater that the dog is going to escape, and this will stop that from happening. If the dog is not a chewer, I leave a fairly inexpensive, regular, this is not inexpensive, but maybe, inexpensive leash, little nylon leash or whatever, on the dog in the crate. Again, plastic crate only. If the dog is going to chew the leash, which honestly, most fearful feral dogs I work with don't chew the leash for the first few days. They're too afraid to even do that. But if I think they might, or they like to bite the leash when I get them out, which is also another way they can escape, is biting through the leash, is I use a chain leash. And then I can attach another leash on the end. If I have a tiny little dog, I had a feral Chihuahua, I go to home improvement store and buy a super light little chain because he would chew through his leashes a lot, and I had to use the leash to bring him in the house and things like that. I got a super light little chain that he could drag around. Now, people will be like, oh, well, the chain makes noise and the dog doesn't like it, and it's a pain to have the dog drag a leash all the time. Well, it's a lot bigger of a pain to lose a dog, trust me. Tipton's gonna be my model. Come here, buddy. Good boy. Previously feral dog. And you can see this is sized to him properly. If I make it tight, the D-rings don't touch. It's right behind his ears. Okay, come on in, buddy. And so if you attach another leash to the chain leash, you can allow that leash to stick out of the crate. And I do this in a car too, because one of the biggest things that happens is you take the dog home, you open the car, the dog jumps out. Always, always transport a fearful feral dog in a crate in the car. You can pull your car into the garage to then close the garage door, open your car, let the dog out. If you can't do that, maybe you can carry the crate into your house and then open it. Or if none of those are an option, this is how I do this. I have the leash on the dog, and then I have a leash sticking out. Grab the leash with my grip that I use, because you don't want to grab it like this, because then boom, right? So I grab the leash this way, and then I let the dog out, and I'm gonna have the dog no matter what happens. So you can switch the chain leash out for a regular leash once you take them out of the crate. How you change out a leash is very important. And I see a lot of people just do this. They unclip the first leash, and then, come here, buddy. They clip the second leash on. But during that whole process, the dog is loose. So how I change out a leash, let's say you don't want to use this leash for your walk or whatever, you only use it in the crate, that's fine. So I hold a short leash so the dog can't pull me all over the place while I'm doing this. Clip the new leash on, and you see I have it kind of wrapped around my hands, especially if you're outside. You don't want the dog to get loose while you're doing this. Still have a hold of this leash. Take this leash, hold it short so the dog doesn't have a lot of room to pull me around, and then take this one off. Never ever do this. I see people do this a lot and it makes me so nervous. And don't hold it like this either, because that's pretty easy to let go of. If you have to use the chain leash because they're gonna bite through it until you fix that problem, that's fine. Sometimes I wear gloves because the chain leash is pretty uncomfortable. I hope this gives you some good ideas about how to keep your fearful feral dogs from escaping. Thank you, Kitten, for being my model.